We are starting this story near to the end of the trail where the Pilgrims first made their first settlement at Plymouth, New England. We now go back to the start of their travels. To do this we have to go where three counties meet, that is Yorkshire, Nottinghamshire and Lincolnshire. The X's mark the names of the important places. We start at Babworth Church in the year 1602. It was here that the Reverend Richard Clifton was drawing large crowds to hear what he was saying with his radical preaching. Amongst his flock was a William Brewster from Screwbury and a younger William Bradford from Austerfield. The bishop got wind of these large gatherings and had Clifton kicked out of the parish. From this, secret meetings were held at William Brewster's house at Screwbury. This was the manor house. But soon word got around what was going on, so they had to hold their secret meetings at Gainsborough Hall. This was owned by a family who were sympathetic with the dissenters. But after a short time, spies were noticing large numbers of people travelling on Sunday from all directions to Gainsborough. A meeting was held of how to move forward, and it was decided to move to Holland as there was no religious persecution there. A Dutch boat had been hired to sail from Boston. The boat was to anchor 2 miles down the river. When they arrived at the boat, they got on board with all their possessions, only to find that the Dutch captain double-crossed them, and soldiers went aboard, arrested them and took all their valuables from them. The men were thrown in prison at the Guild Hall. There were 2 cells. Quite a large cell, quite a few of them were kept inside. A smaller cell. This is the spiral staircase that leads into the courtroom above. The men were in prison for 3 weeks awaiting the travelling assizes to visit. In the meanwhile, the women and children with no change of clothes, no money or food, had to fend for themselves in Boston. The assizes met and bound the men over to keep the peace and told them to go back from where they came from. So they started walking back to Bawtry area, sleeping rough overnight, hoping that relations and friends would give them accommodation, having sold up everything before they left. Bawtry was an inland port on the River Idle, which was their next springboard to escape to Holland. Secret plans were made for the coming spring. The women and children were to take a barge along the Idle to the Trent and then to the Humber, and the men would walk overland at night so as not to be seen. A Dutch boat had been arranged to meet them at a secret rendezvous along the Humber estuary, at a place what we know today as Ingenham. That was the plan, but things went wrong. The strong spring tide on the Humber made the passengers on the barge all seasick, so they pulled off the estuary up a creek away from the rough water. Meanwhile the men spotted the Dutch boat and signalled that they were there. A boat was lowered to bring them on board. At this point a lookout on the ship spotted soldiers in the distance. The captain could not wait for the barge to come alongside, as at this moment in time it was stuck on a mud bank waiting high tide to refloat. He gave the orders to up anchor, leaving the women and children up the creek. This is what Ingenham looks like today, an industrial port. It took the boat 2 weeks to arrive in Holland, having been caught up in a storm and blown up to Norway. The men then settled in the town of Leyden, their families gradually joining up with them. They stayed in Holland for 12 years when they decided, with others, dissenters in England, to sail to the New World in North America and start a settlement. They purchased a small boat, the Speedwell, while in England the Mayflower ship was hired.
Well, I'm the parish priest of St Mary, Rotherhithe. The parish is called St Mary of All Saints now, but it was always St Mary's from the 11th century. And we've got the Mayflower pub here. The church behind me is from 1714, but it's on the site of a medieval church, and in the churchyard are buried some of the crew, the master, the first mate, and I expect some of their children, because they were baptised here and married here, of the Mayflower. And she was broken up in Rotherhithe in 1622.
This historic pub in Rotherhithe is full of history, with the Mayflower passenger list upstairs in the restaurant. The Mayflower sailed from here in 1620 to meet up with the Speedwell at Southampton, only to be followed by many more disasters before they got to the New World. To find out more, see the whole DVD.